Well, folks, it's Saturday. I got Achilles in my lap, and it's Shogun 2 time. Not much beats that. I would have brought you some videos last night, but I had family up in town, so I didn't really want to be doing that kind of stuff while they're here. So let me go ahead and show you a battle replay that I just played. I'm trying to think which ones I just played. I know this battle is one that I want to show you for a couple of reasons, and I'll explain that when we get in there. Now, first of all, before I start this battle, I'm going to point out a bunch of stuff that my opponent does wrong. Now, I'm not in any way ragging on him. I just wanted to show this battle to kind of make a few points about army selection, and then how to properly use that army selection. You have to, when you select an army, you have to understand its strengths, and you have to understand how to engage it properly against various types of armies that you might come up against in order to maximize that army's effect. So sometimes people kind of think that, you know, there's one overpowered army build that'll work against anything. That's just not the case. In Shogun 2, you know, you can have cav heavy builds, you can have infantry heavy builds, and you can have missile heavy builds. You can have rush armies, and you can have skirmish armies. There's lots of different options out there. I'm going to go ahead and go into slow motion just to explain the army setups and what's going on here. Actually, let me just pause it real quick. We'll get this over with, and then I'll let you watch all the action so you catch it. Up front, I have 3 units of bow samurai, closely guarded by a unit of naginata samurai. Backed up behind them are my 2 only veteran matchlock units, and it's Patchy's rifles and Patchy's got a gun. And behind them I have 4 units of I guess they're not veterans, but it's katana samurai. And then I have Patchy's Avatar's bodyguard. There's the old Patchter right there. He's now a bow warrior monk of sorts. He's still a leadership general, though. He's just got a couple of bow traits. Here I have Patchy's Pain Train. And this is my katana cavalry. These guys are awesome. One of my favorite veteran units for certain applications. And then behind them I just have a non-veteran unit of Lone Sword Ashigaru, bringing up the rear. Let's go take a look at my opponent. You saw my opponent's name coming in here. Here's his avatar. His avatar is a melee general, and that is him, and I will show you him later in the battle. There's some cool footage of him. Let's take a look at his infantry. He has brought a sword-based army, which is very powerful in Shogun 2 if it's applied correctly. Let's take a look at the sword units that he brought. He has right here a 9 chevron unit of Lone Sword Ashigaru. They are beat up, but still, those guys are tough. He has this unit of Katana Samurai with 7 chevrons, another Katana Samurai with 7 chevrons, but this one is also missing some of its numbers, which means it's damaged. Many of you have asked me lots of times, Heir, what happens to a veteran unit if it gets killed in the battle? It replenishes. You have to wait one battle for that unit to replenish unless you're using either a retainer or a special clan upgrade on that unit that allows it to be fully replenished at the end of a fight. That's the same thing that happens to your avatar, except your avatar fully replenishes during each fight, so you can't really lose the veteran units. For those of you who are wondering about it, I'm not sure if I've ever explained that. So he's got another Katana Samurai, and right here he's got a Nodachi Samurai with some decent upgrades. And then right here he's got a Katana Hero. Let's take a look at his flanks. That Katana Hero, by the way, let's take a look at that one again, has 5 chevrons. This is a very expensive unit, probably upwards of about 2,000 koku, somewhere in that range. Like I said, very expensive, very, very powerful unit, but needs to be used properly. And then backing them up, he's got a 7 chevron unit of Naginata warrior monks. And then out here on the flanks, he's got a unit of Yari Ashigaru on either flank. This one has 8 chevrons. And then he's got some Naginata warrior monk cav with 4, Katana cav with 5 chevrons, and then he has pretty much a mirror set up on the other side. There's his Yari Ashigaru, Naginata warrior monk cav, and Katana cav. So let's discuss. I know it's on pause real quick. Let me just go ahead and zoom in up here, and let's discuss what my opponent should be doing with this army. Well, first of all, let's see. I'm trying to think how to make the best lesson out of this to help people understand a little bit more about Shogun 2. Now, first, let me preface all this by saying I am not a master of Shogun 2, but I do understand the game quite well. It doesn't mean that I play it perfectly all the time, but like I said, I do understand the mechanics of the game, I believe, very well. I'm always learning something new, so I'm not going to say I know it all. But my opponent's sword army here, what you want to do with the sword army is you want to get them into melee, and you want to get a good charge with them, because all of these units have a decent charge bonus, so you want a good charge, you want good unit placement, And one of the dangers of this army is if an enemy has katana cavalry. You need to keep spears around, which these Naginata warrior monks could do. You need to keep spears around to protect against katana cavalry charges. These Yari Ashigaru out here on the flanks, yes, they may do well supporting his cavalry, but they would be best placed right in front of his army as a meat shield. That's where he should put these guys, right in front of his army as a meat shield, Naginata warrior monks in the back, helping to protect his general, and then he can do as he wishes on the flanks. If I were him, I would keep my katana cavalry close to my infantry body for support, as these guys do not do well in a cav-to-cav fight, and then I would keep my Naginata warrior monk cav available to fight enemy cav, as it's probably better at that than anything else. That's the way I would set up this army, and this katana hero, I would be placing it on the flank and ready to move it in after the fight has begun, and I would move it around the flank. My army setup is more of a skirmish setup. I have bow cavalry. I forgot if I mentioned my cavalry. I have 2 bow cavalry, and let's see, 2 Yari cavalry. Very, very experienced Yari cavalry is what I have over here. They each have about 7 chevrons. And then, like I said, I have Patchy's Pain Train here. So, with a sword army, my opponent should be extremely concerned about katana cavalry. In fact, I'm concerned about katana cavalry, and that's why I've set up my army this way. My army might look tempting to a quick look for katana cavalry, because katana cavalry would absolutely ruin bows, matchlocks, and sword units. But right here up in the center, I've got these Naginata samurai. You can also bring Yari samurai. The reason why I brought Naginata samurai is these guys are less vulnerable to missiles. They're still pretty good against cavalry, and they're still decent in a melee fight. So I brought them for the trade-off. Yari samurai, though, are faster and pack a more potent anti-cavalry punch. That's the trade-offs you run into there. And then, of course, this katana cavalry is placed back here by Patchy for multiple reasons. One, to protect from a melee general, just in case. And that's also what this lone sword unit, but also for active reserve. I'll use it as I see fit. Let's go ahead and put the battle in the slow motion. I hate playing these things entirely in slow motion, but I do like for you to see everything that goes on, because I am definitely trying to teach... Sorry, the cat's knocking my mouse around. He's going up to his little hidey hole where he can sleep. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run my cavalry forward to kind of menace my opponent, slow him down a little, maybe do a little bit of skirmishing with my bow cav. I'll be looking for targets of opportunity. Katana infantry is not super susceptible to missile fire, sorry, I said it wrong. But, they can take damage from missile fire, especially Nodachi and warrior monk units. So, those would be 2 good targets of opportunity to come up and harass my opponent with. And the worst thing that's going to happen is it's going to either draw his general or his cavalry up the center. And that's fine, because if he brings his cavalry up the center, that's where all my missiles are, and also my spear unit. So I'm trying to bait my opponent and anger my opponent into charging. I know the strength of his army is quick engagement and the charge, and so I want to negate those things. So that's my thoughts during this battle, and I'm going to use my army to best accomplish that. Alright, so now that I've explained that, again, you can see that my opponent is leaving his katana troops extremely vulnerable. If I had brought a horde of katana cavalry, I could just immediately charge up here and just wreck his entire army before anything. And I wouldn't even need chevroned up katana cavalry. A unit of just regular old katana cavalry, no chevrons, would absolutely waste this 9 chevron lone sword unit. It would take any of these katana samurai units in a one-on-one fight. With support or spears or other things, yes, that would change, but I'm just telling you, open ground, one-on-one, no chevron katana cavalry would likely massacre one of these sword units, or at least leave it so beat up that it's useless. And the cost difference is what's really going on there. You have an 800 koku katana cav unit versus probably like an 1150 koku unit katana unit there. Now you can see that I targeted his warrior monks with my cav. These guys are already down to 104 men. That was my first volley, and these guys are extremely susceptible to missiles. That's why I'm targeting them. And here comes a second volley. So you can see that I'm going to reduce this unit all the way to a quarter strength before they're even able to even get over this hill. And this is exactly when I wanted, again, his general charging right up the center. Melee generals are quite strong, but they're very, very vulnerable to matchlock fire, and guess what I now have waiting in the very front of my line. Again, this is a bait and switch tactic. So I'm trying to get my opponent to take the bait and get killed. So that's where I'm running my cavalry now back out of the way, and I leave my bow cavalry here just for a second to make them more tempting looking. I'm trying to bait him into my matchlocks, and then I'm going to immediately run this bow cav out as he starts to get closer. My opponent did not buy this bait and switch, but it's always worth it to try those things because sometimes you get away with it. At this point, though, you can see that my opponent's army is in a little bit of disarray. Again, he's not using a meat shield, and he can see that I have matchlock units right in the front of my army. Even if they're matchlock Ashigaru, you should never, ever, ever charge into matchlock Ashigaru with a rush army. They will decimate your numbers and your morale before you can even start the battle. You need to use a meat shield. Use that meat shield to force them back, and then charge. Now here, he made the mistake of running towards my cab with his own. Again, forgetting that I had these matchlock units here. Maybe he forgot to look or to see where I repositioned them. But my matchlock Ashigaru are absolutely ripping up this Naginata warrior monk cab, and then there come my bow samurai as well. And now this unit is absolutely ruined. Let's take a look at what else is going on. Look, here's his warrior monks still taking fire. And look, these guys are all the way down to about 70 men. Have not even entered combat yet. And then the worst mistake I think my opponent made is right here. Again, he should be using a meat shield. Check out, this is his katana hero. Again, this is like a 2,000 koku unit, and they're charging headlong into matchlocks. And my general is in stand and fight, and so my matchlocks are going to be reloading faster. And check this out. One volley, that's all it takes. My little 600 koku unit of matchlock Ashigaru just ruined a 2,000 koku unit of katana samurai before they could even do any damage. And these guys are basically going to rout on contact. Let's go take a look at the cavalry engagement, which is about to begin. I've baited my opponent's infantry up close. My matchlocks... Oh, let me explain one more thing here that's real important. A lot of people don't know this, and I learned it kind of myself as time went on. Some of you have seen me click on the defensive formation for my units, and depending on the unit, it has a very specific use. Now, if you're using like spear or naginata units, the defensive formation, of course, will help your men kind of stand and fight longer and hold their ground and not chase enemies when they win that fight. But with your missile units, one of the advantages of putting them on the defensive is they don't try and stick around in a melee longer. It's easier to remove them from a melee fight and to run them back behind another line. And one of the really neat things about the defensive formations with the matchlock unit is if a cavalry charge comes in and hits the center of this matchlock formation, because the rest of them are in a defensive stance, these guys out here on the flanks will continue to fire and reload and hurt other enemies. So that's why I use the defensive formation with my matchlocks. That's just an idea. If some of you like that idea, you might want to give it a try. Look at these warrior monks down to half strength, and they're just now entering combat with my matchlock units. This guy got caught reloading. Anyway, let's put it back into slow motion. I know this whole battle's in slow motion, but I just kind of want you to see it that way so you can learn the lesson here. My bow cavalry is in danger here, and it looks like I am not watching them at the moment. So they're going to get caught here by this enemy warrior monk cav. Again, my opponent is using this diamond formation, or wedge formation is I guess what you want to call it. It's not a diamond. The wedge formation is really not good at this kind of fight, and he should have had them in a long, thin line, and then when they hit my bow cavalry, they would pretty much killed all of them on the charge. And then look how bunched up your men get after the charge on that wedge formation. And so now it's just a simple matter of running my Yari cavalry right around his flanks and encircling his men. And he has another unit of katana cavalry coming in. That katana cavalry should have been sent towards my sword infantry. So here you can see my matchlocks doing a falling back maneuver, and then I'm countercharging with my own katana samurai. So not only did his men not get a charge bonus here, but mine did, and his men are already a little beat up and tired. So that's why I did this countercharging action. And look here, my Naginatas are holding him in the center and taking away the charge bonus again from his troops. So right there, my opponent lost a lot of his big advantage. You can see his morale's already down. So yeah, my opponent lost a lot of advantages in the approach that he took there. Now, so here you can see his cavalry is actually getting quite a few kills and doing well because it's engaged with one of my bow cav. Finally, I get my my first Patchy's guards over here, my Yari cav, and I'll start ripping up this warrior monk cav. And here, just barely at the last second, I saw this katana cavalry charge. But katana cavalry don't have any bonus versus other cavalry, and they don't really have the best charge bonus. So my Yari cavalry, even though they got hit standing still, will absolutely ruin these katana cav. Oh, I used my katana cav. Check this out. My katana cav charged that Nodachi samurai that was out here, completely beat the Nodachi samurai, and they still have 31 men left, and that's with the Yari Ashigaru round, and they took the enemy general down to only 24 men. So this is Patchy's Pain Train. Katana cavalry is best used only against sword infantry or melee generals. That's its best use. Do not use it anywhere else unless you have to, because it's just not very good at it. They will mop up archers, matchlock, and infantry really quick, but they're horrible against other cavalry. Albeit just these generals' bodyguard cavalry, they seem to do very well against them. That's just a tip for you. So this katana cavalry stood in that fight, beat an entire unit, half ruined the general, and even took down a few spears before it routed. So that's pretty impressive. So you can see the cav fight over here. All I really did was just try and bog my opponent down. He's got some katana samurai in here as well, but now my bow cavalry's back here, and they can just start taking shots. And they'll start turning that fight back to my favor. My missile units retreated and are now firing volleys into the enemy lines, which is going to further demoralize them. And look, here comes a katana samurai that I outflanked my opponent with. So his troops are now sandwiched. He's going to try and fix this sandwich with his own Yari-Ashigaru, but it's kind of too late. The damage has been done on those units. His general is over here in a desperate fight with my men. At least I think he's somewhere around. Yep, there he is. So here's the enemy avatar. He's over here fighting all these other units. You're going to see matchlock rounds whizzing past him on several different occasions. And he nearly dies because I do have my matchlock firing at the enemy general unit here. So, yes. One more time, let me explain. I guess we'll kind of just keep an eye on this enemy avatar. There's not really a whole lot of other stuff going on in the fight. Let's go take a look at Patch. Look at Patchy over here. Commanding his men from the stand and fight formation. And I think in true Patchy form, he is barefoot. I love it. So, yeah, I want you to see this here in just a moment. Yeah, this unit right here, you can actually, let's see, where is it going to happen? It's about to happen, I think, here in just a minute. This matchlock unit, remember I was telling you about the defensive formation? And I want you to see this and see how that works. They're still firing at this enemy general unit that's out here. It's got 7 men left, but look, right here comes the enemy avatar. And he's going to collapse in, and normally, once one of these units gets engaged in combat, they'll stop firing. But look, you can see my men still lined up, still reloading and preparing to fire out here. So even though there's a little bit of cavalry disruption, they're going to go ahead and do their job, and they're still going to keep shooting at these other guys. Now, I know this isn't the best example because it's just one horseman, but trust me, this works even if you get charged by a bigger group, and it can be pretty effective. So you can see this guy even right here who is right next to the general. He's still taking shots with his matchlock. So that's pretty cool. And in fact, right there, the leader of that, that is so cool. The leader of this matchlock unit just killed the enemy avatar, and that is now going to be the end of the battle. So thank you for watching. I hope you learned some lessons from this. I know the battle was like kind of slow because I had it paused and all that stuff, but I really wanted to teach you a lesson in this fight because I thought it was a valuable lesson. And this kind of discussion doesn't just apply to these two types of armies. It applies to lots of different types of armies. Of course, the discussion would be slightly different depending on what types of armies are facing off and what kind of terrain you have. You need to, like I said, there's lots of different armies you can use to be successful. You just need to know how to use it against other types of armies and how to maximize its potency. So my opponent brought a very tough army, an army that he very well could have beat me with, but he just organized his men the wrong way, in my opinion, in order to have the maximum effect. Again, hope you enjoyed that. I was glad to bring it to you, and I will be back, throughout the weekend with more Total War action. And I just enjoy doing this stuff, YouTube. I hope you enjoy it. So Heir Carthage signing off for now.